Get ready for an unfair advantage over your competition. This is the Sales Edge podcast, where globally recognized sales expert and trainer Joe Pici helps you sharpen your skills for booking more appointments and closing more deals. And now, here's your host, Joe Pici.
Welcome back to the Sales Edge. This is Joe Pici. This is podcast number 28. And here at the Sales Edge, we continue to work hard to bring value to you. We're going to continue to roll out content that's going to help you get better at whatever you do, specifically in business. Okay, this is not a life coaching podcast that I haven't been given that genes. This is full speed, blunt, kind of in your face. Tell it like it is. Take no prisoners. And today we're going to be covering a subject that, I asked for people to send questions in. And a few weeks ago, I did a podcast on assessing the first half of the year. That seems to have brought out some questions. So here at the podcast, we're going to accumulate questions. Sales Edge is open for you to type in questions to Joe at PICIANDPICI.com. You can put that you want your name. You can say handle this on the air. You can say handle this privately. You can even call me at 407-947-2590. But these are some questions that were sent in. When you send those in, make sure you do put in the tag, the Sales Edge. So we're going to get right to it. And it's a very interesting topic today. And once again, I believe that these questions were kind of stirred. The last week of June, we put out a podcast about assessing the first half of your year, reassessing what you had accomplished, not accomplished, reloading, moving forward. So we're going to talk about failure. And it's kind of like a lightning rod subject, isn't it? People don't like to fail. So when I was confronted with these questions, the first thing I wanted to do was I wanted to see what Webster had to say, the Webster Dictionary. Failure, the state or condition of not meeting a desired or intended objective. It may be viewed as the opposite of success. Now, is that the way you look at failure? That's certainly not the way I look at failure. And I think everything is perspective, and how we look at things really helps us determine how we're going to proceed. How do you personally view failure? If you're not riding in your car or on the treadmill and you're sitting there, you're probably not, and you want to jot a couple things down and even email them to me. But I think we have to look at that. I have a number of questions regarding failure. And Chris from Michigan, here's his question. Joe, what is failure? Wow. I mean, that was the question. It was, Joe, what is failure? Well, the first thing I like to always do is I look at masters. And one of my favorite masters was Zig Ziglar. And Zig always said, failure is an event. It is not a person. Failure is an event. It's not a person. It's an episode. It's a loss. It's a setback. It's a broken promise. These are things that happen. They're not people that happen. And so one of the first things we have to understand about failure is not to own it, not to wear it, not to say, I'm a failure. You are not a failure. I am not a failure. Maybe an episode failed. Maybe I didn't get a contract. Maybe I didn't close a deal. Maybe I got no-showed. Whatever that episode is, and I have a huge coaching business, and one of the things I work so hard with people is to get that quote-unquote failure tag and get it off of a person, because people are not failures. Now, failure is inevitable. That's something else I think we have to understand. Everyone will face failure. And that's something else. With YouTube and LinkedIn and and all the social media, we can fall into the trap of seeing some very successful people and think they just lucked up on it and they never had any challenges. You know, John Maxwell wrote a book, Failing Forward. And Dawn and I, if we are gaining any success at all, I think one of the things we've learned to do was to go from failure to failure, event to event. You can't let it fester inside of you, okay? I was a football coach for a lot of years, and I was a college coach, and I got fired. I wasn't a failure, but that was a failure. And even though we won, I found myself at a small high school in Southwest Florida, and I had a bunch of kids that really lacked self-esteem. And I always had a philosophy that if I had a player like a running back who fumbled the ball early in the game, if he came off the field and made excuses or put his head down or didn't own it, he might not see the day again. But if he came off the field, looked me dead in the eye, and said, "My fault, coach, give me another shot," that's not going to happen again. Then the very next series, he got the ball. He didn't own the failure. It was an event. Somebody put their hat on the ball and knocked it out. People don't, we'd have our booster club. This was before I got into personal growth and development stuff. And I remember this one father said, we were down on the goal line and our fullback fumbled the ball. He said, "Coach, why did he did that?" I said, "Well, actually, I sent the play in, 34 guard trap fumble." People don't mean to have failure in their life in an event. When a failure event happens, we cannot look back. When you look back, you're not looking forward. And in John's book, Failing Forward, the key to overcoming failure is to focus forward. Get to the next thing. You'll find that by getting to the next thing, the failure doesn't hurt as bad. Failure, and I believe, once again, I'm answering the same question, what is failure? I believe failure is a cornerstone to massive success. When I study successful people, and I do, I want to know where they came from. But I really want to know what their biggest challenges were. A good friend of mine, Andy Andrews, one of the first books he ever wrote was called Storms of Perfection. And what he did was he sent to very successful people letters saying, "Can you send to me a letter on your biggest struggle before you made it?" And for a while, nobody answered. And then he started getting them. And then one common denominator for the whole thing was every successful person had that time in their life where an event occurred. Something happened that we would construe as a failure. So I would say to you, what is failure? It's part and parcel to the massive success you're going to have if you keep it in perspective. Alert, alert. Failure is coming. I speak to people every day that are surprised by failure. Let's get to question number 2. Mike from Melbourne. How can I cope with failure? What needs to change? I believe that the first thing you have to do to change in coping with failure is your programming. Who's programming you? Who's in your head? Who's in your ear? Who do you spend time with? I used to have a shirt many years ago. I wore it so much I wore it out. It's before I started wearing a uniform, so to speak. And it had a circle with the word whiner in an X. I'm not going to spend time with whiners. I just can't deal with it. Because you're moving on. And it's kind of like, let's say you're in a rowboat. Okay? You're in a rowboat and you're rowing and you have a bunch of anchors. And those anchors constitute failures. You have to start cutting them off. And part of the failure might be spending time with people that have a negative view on failure, and they tend to whine. Now, I'd like you to go back and re-listen to the 3 podcasts I did on personal growth. I'm not going to take you through it again, but this whole personal growth thing can help you create great information, so it helps you program your mind for success. And then I would say this to you. You have to form an attitude of never make an excuse. You know, there is no excuse for a failure event. I decided a long time ago I was going to take the blame and the responsibility for everything. And this makes life so simple. This way I don't have to look around the room and wonder who messed that up. It was me. I'll take it, and let's move on. You know, I do a lot of training in conflict resolution. I often teach people you can do 2 things with conflict. You can try to win or try to resolve it. Same thing with me. I'm not going to dwell on the negative. I'm not going to dwell on the failure. I'm going to focus future. So I would recommend you vet your mentors. Are they problem solvers? Are they solution people? Or do they like to talk about what's wrong? They like to stay in that circle of sameness. Question number 3, Joe from Orlando. What are some of the things you do? I have to take you back years and years ago. A good friend of ours, New York Times bestseller about 3 or 4 or 5 times over. Tremendous, I think, the finest storyteller, expositor of mindset with respect to success, Andy Andrews. And Andy and Dawn and I had gone out to dinner, and we were sitting in a coffee shop late, and we were talking about success. Yes, that's what people who are moving on don't talk about people and negative. They talk about success. And Andy said to me, Joe, I want to show you a model I've been working on, and you can use this. It's not a copyright deal. It's success. He said, Joe, would you agree that all of life is about choices and decisions? I said, yeah, it is. Everything is about choices. Everything is about decisions. Okay? Would you agree that if you have good choices and you have good decisions, that's going to create good actions? I said, every time. Every time you make a right choice, you make a right decision, it's going to create great actions. He said, Joe, what are we paid for in life? Or what are we measured for? I said, we're measured on results. He said, Joe, if you do the right actions, you get the right results every time. He said, so Joe, if decisions and choices create actions, and actions create results, then who's in charge of your choices and decisions? And wow, that hit me. And I went, wow. He said, Joe, can you affect the way you think? I said, well, of course you can. He said, well, your thoughts drive your actions. Your thoughts are part of your decision-making and your choices. And so there is where I realize again and again and again, the importance for overcoming failure is in the programming of your mind. Please understand this. This can change the game. Now, I saw a video at 3:30 this morning, and I went, oh, that's good. And I'd seen it many times before, but this one just hit me. You have 2 wolves inside of you fighting. You've got the quitter, excusitis, it's other people's fault. And you got the overcomer, the overcoming failure, the play at all costs. And so they're constantly at war in your body. So who wins? And it's the wolf you feed the most. Are you feeding the wolf that's the overcomer? That's the solution person. Now we're going to go to question number 4. This is Linda from Texas. And by the way, all these people told me not to put their last names in. Do you ever feel adversity and failure follow you? And I have to laugh. And if I were to tell you that I never thought that, I'd be a liar. And I'm not going to lie to you. I mean, there's just some time you think it's raining over your head all the time. I mean, Dawn and I I think people think, Dawn and I have this charmed life and nothing bad ever happened to us. But Dawn and I have learned to overcome through adversity. But I believe everybody has challenges and have failures. And I believe everybody has those dark cloud days. But here's my caution, Linda, and everyone else. Never own a victim mentality. Never feel like you are the victim. Oh, many, many years ago, I sat down with a guy who was very successful, but his former life, he came out of serious addiction. And I asked him the question, how did you do this? How did you overcome addiction to become so successful? He said, Joe, as an addict, he said, you go through a program, and then you have to make a decision one day. And that decision is, am I going to live in the problem or am I going to live in the solution? And he said, Joe, to stay clean or to overcome adversity or to deal with failure after failure, you have to be a solution-based thinker. And so I recommend that to you. When you feel the clouds are over your head, when you feel like failure is chasing you, I want you to think about this. I'm going to live in the solution. I'm going to find ways to overcome this. I'm not going to own this failure. I'm going to give you the last question of the day, which is from Tom from South Carolina. Just connected with him on LinkedIn. Probably going to do some coaching with Tom. And he said, Joe, I kind of checked you out and looked at your history, and I see you spent 20 years of coaching football. And I said, yeah. He said, Joe, can you tell me one thing you used to tell your players on how they should deal with challenges and how to play to win? And I said, well, yeah, I can tell you that story. I said, I'd stand up in front of those players and we'd look over at the fence. You see, every field has a fence. And when I was coaching Pop Warner, there were little leaguers below them, and I'd say, look over at that fence. Those kids are watching you. They're watching everything you do. And then I moved up to high school, and there was the fence, and I'd look over at those my players. I'd say, look at those kids. They're watching you. You're their heroes. They want to play on Friday night when they turn the lights on. And then when I got to college, I would tell my college players, look at the fence. Those are those high school kids. They would do anything. They would do anything at all to wear your jersey on Saturday afternoon and play in front of thousands of people and maybe even play on television with hopes that one day they could play in the National Football League. Don't do anything to embarrass yourself. Never take a play off. Always play to win. Always play like that is your son sitting in the passenger seat of your car and watching every action. So hopefully I've given some context to a red-hot topic called failure. This is Joe Pici. This is the Sales Edge. Now, just for your information, if you'd like a free download, couple free download ebooks, if you'll go to your iPhone and type in 55678, and then go in the tagline, the message, and put in Sales Edge. It has to be one word. So if it is broken up on an iPhone, put quotes around it. Hit that. It'll take you to a link. That'll take you to a landing page. There's some magnificent, really good ebooks. One is on LinkedIn. Dawn has been on in the past about LinkedIn. Okay. Also, for your information, feel free to send me questions. Joe at PICIANDPICI.com. Put in the tagline Sales Edge and put any questions you want about business development, sales, growth, and let me know if you want me to put your name and do it on the show like I did today, or if you want to do it privately. I also offer a complimentary Cup of Joe, which is when you pick up the phone and dial 407-947-2590. We have a cup of Joe and we see, are there any few tips that I can give you to help you get to the next level? What is the next level for you? So this has been the Sales Edge, and we're excited about where we're going. We are in our 24th country now. Italy finally came on board. I'm fired up. And so we'll see you at our next podcast. Have a great day.
Thank
Thanks for listening. New episodes will air each Tuesday and Thursday, so make sure to subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and give us a 5-star review. The Sales Edge is sponsored by Pici and Pici Incorporated, a firm which provides training, consulting, and keynote presentations, empowering corporations and individuals to attract and retain quality clients for higher revenues and growth. Make more money in sales. Speak with Joe in person by calling 407-947-2590 or visit www.piciandpici.com. Spelled PICIAND, PICI.com.